I want to talk to you about meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to talk about yoga, but you said meditation. I want to dive into that. So I've never shared this on this podcast. I have this, I don't think I have, maybe I've done a lot of podcasts, but I have this aversion to meditation, and I'll tell you why. My father got very into meditation in when I was a young kid, and I've been open. I haven't had a relationship with him in many years, and he forced my brother and I to do meditation. It was like forced. He would take us to this place outside in Massachusetts, like to this Maharishi. I don't understand. I don't know what it was, but it was a forced thing, and we had to do it. And I remember like I would be in my bedroom, and if I had to use the bathroom, and if I had to use the bathroom in the middle of when I was supposed to be meditating, it was like an explosion. It wasn't good. So then what was supposed to be something peaceful became something that like I just developed this. I don't want to do this. It's like this inner fear and anxiety around it. I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. I understand this is my own personal experience, and it's not all meditation. So I would love to learn more about it. And I want to learn more about your meditation practice because, I mean, number one, the research around it is overwhelming. Like it can be incredibly positive and beneficial. And it's something that like my own demon I would like to face. So can you talk to me about your meditation practice, what you do, how it works, and then how it benefits you?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for sharing that experience because it matters.
Yeah.
It really does. It makes a difference. So I'm trained in 23 lineages of meditation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I did a really extensive meditation teacher training that wasn't just like, go to Bali for a weekend and you'll come back enlightened. I don't believe in that at all.
Okay.
At all.
That's points in my book. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So the way I started meditating was actually, hopefully my parents don't listen to this podcast. There was a lot of anger in my household.
Okay.
And I was escaping that because I don't like loud. I just don't like anger. I understand the people who say, well, anger as an emotion can fuel action. Okay.
That's fine.
Fair. But I am like kind of similar to your experience. It's like, well, it was when it's happening as a kid, you can be like, oh my gosh, I don't want this. I don't want this.
Petrifying.
It is.
When it's put on you.
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it's just, it exists and you don't like it.
Yes.
And so I would go into my closet. This was in high school. And I would close the door, lights off, and I would just sit for as long as I could. I didn't have a timer. I didn't have an app. I didn't have guidance. I didn't know what I was doing. I just sat and I paid attention to my breath. That I taught myself meditation, right? So that's as a child. And then you start practicing yoga and people are like, yoga is a moving meditation. And okay, but again, I got into yoga for the physical. This is an aesthetic thing. This is to help me with my flexibility and to whatever. And it really wasn't until much later that I was like, hang on a second. There's a connection here that I have not been making. And so now I do practice a different way than I teach.
Okay.
So my meditation practice is a Vipassana meditation. So it's stillness and silence. It is a pretty, I guess people would say like an extreme or a strict form of meditation, but you sit for an hour at a time.
No way. An hour straight? Oh my goodness.
And there's no sound, there's no guidance, there's nothing. And the opportunity,
what do you do?
You focus on your breath first of all.
Okay.
You start with that. And then you start to focus on the subtleties of the body. So you do a body scan. So it's not like you're not going to maybe hear some thoughts in the head, or it's not that your mind won't wander or anything like that, but you're really trying to tame the mind. And the part about the not moving is there's a, the purpose behind that is we're very reactionary in life. And so can you sit with this notion that everything is impermanent and that scratch that you really are craving right now will go away eventually. And in the same way as you sit and you practice being non-reactive, maybe you won't be an asshole in traffic. Maybe you won't honk your horn. Maybe you will be more patient when you're in line or somebody gets your order wrong or blah, 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 right? Apply it in any sense of like real life. And so that's the way, again, that's how I practice. How I teach is I teach metta meditation, so loving kindness, compassion meditation. That's for people who are familiar with Jack Kornfield, kind of that thread. I teach yoga nidra, which is helpful for sleep. It's like Huberman started calling it non-sleep deep rest. And there was a whole controversy around the difference between yoga nidra and non-sleep deep rest. So you aren't falling asleep, but a lot of people practice it to give their brain something to focus on in order to shift the brainwave states and go deeper and deeper so that ultimately you are able to fall asleep without your brain pinging around. You know, I do practice sound journeys. I don't call it sound therapy or sound healing because I'm not a healer and I'm not a therapist, but I can, and I've been trained in sound as well. And then there's so many other forms. You can do focused attention meditation with, I think LeBron James has talked about this a lot because any sort of athlete who I've trained, that's what I tend to like gravitate toward for them. I used to work with the Dallas rugby team back when Dallas had a rugby team. It was awesome. These guys were great. They were so into meditation, but to improve focus, right? So it really depends on the intention. Like, what's the anchor of your meditation? I'm going to say, well, what do you want to gain from it? And then, you know, some are laying down, some are sitting up, some are eyes open, some are eyes closed, some are Zen Buddhist meditation, very like, I'm going to use the word rigid.
Yeah.
Right? Stoic is probably a better word. And then some are a bit more fluid where there's guidance. I could get really nerdy on this, so forgive me. But there's also a difference then between concentration and meditation.
Oh, please tell me. I don't know any. I'm so ignorant on this.
No, it's not ignorance. Like, this is what I teach on this. So concentration is anything with guidance because you essentially, I'm helping you to practice concentrating, to practice focusing. But real meditation is what comes after that, when you don't need the guidance and when you can just experience maybe not nirvana or ultimate bliss or enlightenment, but where you are aware then of your thoughts pinging or moving, and then you are able to bring it back. So it's that awareness of continuing to come back to the present moment, continuing to sit with the sensations in your body without reacting, and to sit with your breath.
When you said that you sit for an hour, or number one, actually, are you sitting or lying down?
I sit. Because the risk is you fall asleep
right.
if you're, reclined.
So are you like cross-legged?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that comfortable?
If you do it the right way. So the reason I paused is because I'm like, I have a video on how to sit for meditation.
Oh, okay.
And it's like 5 minutes. I think Mitch probably shot that video. Because I get this question a lot because people are like, my back hurts, my knees hurt, my knees are up to my shoulders.
Yeah, that's all you're thinking about. Yeah.
So you have to be able to use props to make it comfortable for yourself. And then once you're able to set yourself up, you should be able to sit for longer and longer periods of time. You can use different tools you could honestly use a chair. You can use something with a backrest. Make it comfortable for yourself to begin. And then, experiment or explore with sitting for longer. But don't be suffering for an hour at a time. Yeah.
So my brain goes to this. And I'm purely thinking selfishly here about myself. I've got 2 girls, God willing, another one on the way, run a couple businesses. Life is crazy.
Yes.
And if I usually work out at night, like late at night, like 10 or 11 p.m., because that's like, I could either wake up really early or work out late at night. And I fucking hate waking up early. Like, I just don't like doing it. So I'm going to wake up, I'm going to stay late at night. So for me and for other people listening who are like, hey, I don't want to sacrifice my workouts. I don't want to sacrifice, I have essentially like very little extra time. is there a meditation practice that could, this is going to sound so ridiculous, but like a 1 to 5 minute type thing that someone could start to introduce to start to get benefits from it?
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't say this without the backing of science.
Right.
So I use, and I have a video that I've shared. I've shared this publicly because so many people ask me this question. I pair it with breath, and I use a Coregeous ball underneath my sternum. So it's almost like a Pilates ball, but you inflate it about like 70 to 75% of the way. And I like it on my sternum because I get to just be laying down.
Oh, okay. You're flat on your stomach? Okay.
Shoulders roll forward, and you pay attention to your breath. 5 minutes there, and you start to elicit that relaxation response. So it stimulates the vagus nerve and the branches of the vocal cords, and it is effective. So let's say you're driving from somewhere and traffic has been crazy and your nerves are shot. You come home, you're on the ball for 5 minutes, and that's like a little mini session for you to just get back to baseline and then keep going. And so usually what I tell my clients is the more of these mini sessions that you can do, if you don't have a full hour, I mean, who has a full hour?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, right. An extra one. Then do these little mini activations.
Okay.
And that will for sure move the needle. Because also, a lot of times people don't realize it's hard to sit for 5 minutes without talking, without moving.
It's brutal. I'm terrible at it. I'm really bad. Like, it's hard for me to shut my brain off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is the other thing I say. Don't shut your brain off in meditation. Just observe your brain. So what are the thoughts that you're thinking? Are they repetitive? Are they negative? And then just write it down. So at the end of 5 minutes, I am a huge journaler, and I mean, I sell journals, literally. I'm so big about if you don't have one, you need to have one, even if it's, and not typing in the notes section of your phone.
Yeah.
I do that, but for different purposes. There's something about pen and paper that is different. But writing down helps you to reflect, number one, so that kind of gels experiences. And then number two, when you write it down, you start to notice patterns. Wow, I'm thinking about this person every day. I'm thinking about this conflict every day. I'm thinking about this, obstacle in my life every day. And only then can we start to go, okay, what do I need to do to either set this aside or deal with it or flush it down the toilet or whatever. If I'm not even paying attention to what it is, then it's not going to change. It's just going to keep coming up.
I'm going to tell you exactly what my thoughts are.
Okay, tell me.
And this is turning into a therapy session.
I love it.
When I get into, this is basically all day. At any point in time, my brain is like, I should be doing something else. I should be being more productive. I should be with my daughters. I should be with my wife. I should be making content. I should be responding to DMs. I should be doing something. One of the reasons I actually really enjoy this podcast is because it's a moment in which I can be fully present. I love being with my daughters because I can be fully present. But I'd be lying if I didn't say, like, sometimes I'm with them and I'm like, fuck, I need to be doing X, Y, and Z so that I can still afford to pay for the house and pay for groceries and all this other stuff. So very rarely do I have moments in which I can be fully present. Even when I'm working out, like, I've got their monitors on my phone so I can watch them sleeping. I can make sure they're okay. It's very rarely is the moment where I can be fully present. And I feel like adding some form of meditation could be very beneficial to me, but that, I can tell you, that would be where my thoughts go. I mean, like, I should be doing something else instead of fucking lying here on this 75% like Pilates ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, what would you recommend for what am I thinking about? Is just paying attention to that thought over and over and over again? Like, do you have a certain breathing technique that you use? Like, what would I do?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is stop shooting all over yourself. Okay. That's also very common because we have been conditioned as a society to be doing things like, oh, just you existing, chilling underneath the sun, looking at the goats outside. Like, that's not enough. Like, I got to do more. But the truth is, you go to other countries and experience different cultures, and they're not obsessed like we are with the constant doing, So that's number one. Stop shooting all over yourself. And then, breathing in and out through the nose is really effective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to calm the central nervous system. And you're also going to, if you're laying like I described, you're going to focus on the movement of the rib cage. So you're actually, this is really great for someone like you because you understand the diaphragm, the chief breathing muscle, how it's a muscle. And we need to move those intercostal muscles between the ribs so that we're not locked down. Because if we're locked down, there's a whole cascade of things that starts to happen that we don't want to happen, right? Organs start functioning differently. We're not fully breathing into our, complete lung capacity. And
you get mobility issues from that.
Yes. On and on. Postural muscles. So it's really, you can look at it not as a workout, but a work in. That sounds
I love that.
so cliche.
No, I like that. I like that. I actually, you said it, I was like, oh, that's pretty genius. I love that.
Yeah. So but it really is for your nervous system. It is for all of these parts of the body that you can't see. We're so, again, the mirror, the performative stuff that, I can see my biceps, so I want it to look good, but you can't see the diaphragm, so fuck it. Like, no, hang on. The diaphragm is super important. The diaphragm has attachments to the lumbar spine, right? So if I take that same ball and I place it underneath the sacrum, now I can breathe into the space around the sacrum and I can help myself to relieve low back pain. So these are just things I've learned along the way, right? Where I'm like, oh no, this is effective. And again, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes before a workout, 5 minutes after a workout.
I was just going to ask, you could do it like before or after a workout.
Yes,
You're already in the gym, just do it.
You're already there.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
Before
it's cool.
bed.
Even if like you're in a busy gym, just do it in the warm-up section or something.
Of course.
Cool.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't care what people think
give a
of
shit.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's doing something weird. I mean, honestly, most people would probably come over and be like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Can you teach me that?
Yeah.
Even legs up the wall. So you've got your legs up on your headboard or tailboard of your bed or something, right? We're just taking the feet above the heart. We're just giving the body a different way to perceive itself. We're impacting what's happening inside the body, the stuff that we can't see, but the stuff that like really, really matters.